Happy Sunday. Hey, 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 hey. The year is rolling on by. Hi, I'm Coach Yolanda, certified international spiritual life coach, host of the Mama Meditations, which before we came on, I was thinking we only have a couple of more of these meditations this year before we take everything into a new platform and onto a new space. And what a journey it has been. I was reluctant to even come onto YouTube. I was challenged by my then business coach, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, who said, "Oh, you should put yourself out there." I had already been doing mornings on Clubhouse. We started on Zoom and then it went to Clubhouse, and I had already been doing that. And my business coach suggested expanding that and jumping on YouTube. And I was like, I don't want to do it. And here we are all of this time later. Um, and no pun intended, what this has evolved into and what this has done, not just personally, but also, of course, professionally for me, is to see myself um, in a different light. I love being in the background. I am not a foreground kind of girl, even though my personality may say otherwise. I like to be in the background. And so being in the foreground was never my intention. But if I had not done that, um, I would have missed out on a lot. And I say all of that to say to you that you may also be missing out on a lot if you are not expanding beyond the boundaries that you may have set for yourself, and particularly where we're the most comfortable. We might be the most comfortable in particular places and spaces, but if we don't go beyond those boundaries, how are we going to know what else is out there for us? So I encourage everyone to think about that thing that you really don't want to do. That might be the exact thing that you need to do to push you into the version of you that you are meant to be. It is very easy for some of us to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and get comfortable and feel like, yep, this is my lane. This is what I like to do. I'm not trying to modify or do anything different. If you know that you have been in a particular routine and that routine is no longer serving you, or there's a nudging, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. There's this little nudging in your spirit where you feel like there's got to be something else. There's something else I want to do. Do it all. As they say, throw the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, even if you are afraid to do so. So we only have a couple of more Mama Meditations on the YouTube platform starting in 2025. As I have mentioned, I've started my own online community. And so the Sunday offerings will happen in that community. My coaching will happen in that community. Everything that I do and have created will be in the evolved community. And so I'm not quite sure if everyone is going to move with me, but I'm willing to see. Um, I'm willing to see, because I think, what has happened in the past couple of weeks for all of us, we now have to see, how are we going to show up? How are we going to operate? How are we going to be? How are we going to utilize our power? Because if you are feeling powerless, because of things that have been unfolded over the past couple of weeks. Like I said last week, are you ready now? There's a reason why we've been talking about our own personal power this year, because now we need it. Now we have to tap into it. Now we have to operate from it. Now we have to make sure that it is our guiding light and our force. Because if we are relying on others to support us, to guide us, to take care of us, to protect us, to do the work for us, you can see what happens when you give over your power to other people and say, I may not believe in myself, but I believe in you. So here, take this. It is something great that I have to offer, and I'm trusting you with it. And this is not to say that anyone did anything wrong. By trusting in particular things. This is not to say that um, our power, our voice is going to be silenced. As a matter of fact, I think it'll be louder than ever. Um, and I believe, as I said, if I did not say in on this platform, I certainly said it in the Evolve community, that if things had happened or unfolded in a different way, we may never discover particular truths about ourselves. I said that to an individual just yesterday, Friday, that sometimes we have to be in adverse situations to see what we're made of. You don't necessarily get to see that version of you when things are going well. You don't necessarily get to see, who you can become when everything is to your liking. If you've ever had an experience of being in the midst of a chaotic situation, maybe somebody needed to call 911, maybe there was a fire or a health emergency or something that was outside of the normal. If that thing had not happened, you wouldn't get to see who you are in a crisis. You wouldn't get to see who you are when it's chaotic. Do you remain calm? Is that when you are your most level-headed? Are you able to see things as having a favorable resolution? Sometimes we don't know that until our backs are up against the wall and things are not to our liking. And so we may be at the verge of seeing versions of ourselves that we would not have seen in any other way. And that might be the most powerful thing that you do, the most powerful thing that you create. Um, if you believe that you have the capacity to face whatever comes your way. If you are still feeling like, I just don't have it, I don't have the capacity, I'm tired, I have fought this battle before and I just don't have it in me, oh, ye of little faith. I am a true believer that experiences show up in our lives to show us who we are, and that we are given the tools necessary to meet that task. Doesn't mean that you're going to win every time. Doesn't mean that you're going to triumph every time, but you will learn something. You will absolutely learn something. So today, um, and I almost hate saying this out of my mouth because I feel like every time I say it, I turn out to do the opposite. We are not going to be long today. Um, Friday, I've had two experiences last week where it took me 2 hours to get home. Normally, it takes me 15 to 20 minutes. That's it. Maybe 30 if things are busy. On Wednesday, it took me 2 hours to get home. On Friday, it took me 2 hours to get home. And so, of course, I'm like, what is this teaching me? What lesson is it that I need to learn? That this experience has now happened twice in 1 week. What is it that I need to pay attention to? I don't know. I still haven't come up with an answer, but what I did know is that because of both of those experiences, I said, okay, Friday night, Saturday, I'm doing nothing but resting. I literally stayed in the bed all day yesterday and it was glorious. I'm trying to think if I got up to eat. I may not have, I may have gotten up to nosh on something, but I was committed to resting my mind and resting my body, and that is what I did. And I still have this feeling of euphoria. Um, I feel well rested, but also so uber relaxed that we may not be long today because I might go right back in there and finish resting. I feel clear in thought. My body feels well rested. Um, Earlier, I was talking about nudges and how I feel Wednesday when I wasn't able to get home. I was like, okay, let me at least get something to eat because I hadn't eaten. So as I'm waiting for traffic to die down, and there were multiple traffic snafus between where I was to where I needed to be, which was home, because we have reflections on Wednesday night. And I kept looking at the clock and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I pushed it back to 6:30. I kept saying, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. Not going to make it. And so as I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about, am I getting irritated? Am I getting frustrated? And I could feel the frustration starting to come. And then I felt like, you know what? This is a nudge. This is a nudge from the universe. And then I thought about all of those times where I have felt frustrated or irritated, and how that sometimes can lead to commentary in my head like everybody is against me and this isn't fair and I shouldn't have to put up with this. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. If I look at it for what it truly might be, it might just be a nudge from the universe, like a tap on the shoulder or a whisper in the ear that you are somewhere that does not work for you anymore. And this is just another reminder of that, to push you towards the thing that you desire. And so I got myself together on Wednesday. Thank goodness I did, because Friday was a similar nightmare where I just could not get home. And instead of being frustrated, instead of being angry, instead of thinking that the world was against me, because who wants to hold on to that kind of energy, I started to think, this is a nudge, this is a whisper, this is a tap on the shoulder, this is the universe almost confirming what you already know to be true. That this should be a reminder that if you were doing what it is that you truly want to do, these things would not be present in your life. I wouldn't have to worry about getting from one place to another. I wouldn't have to worry about the traffic nightmares. I wouldn't have, those things would not be part of my experience if I was truly working from a place of this is where I want to be. And so every single time I find myself about to get frustrated about, well, life doesn't look the way that I want to look. That's a nudge. That's a whisper. Sometimes it's a kick in the behind. And I do not look at those experiences as negative anymore. I look at them as confirmation from the universe. The universe is even saying, look, girl, you are not where you say you want to be. So why are you here? Why are you in this traffic? Why are you, participating in activities? Why are you putting your energy, your time, and your focus? And I say those things a lot: time, focus, energy, attention. Why are you putting them towards things that don't align with the thing that you say you want to do? Our energy is precious, our time is precious, our focus is so important. The things that we are pouring into are so, it's like a precious, valuable um, source. And yet, sometimes we can be reckless with it. Sometimes we're not always mindful. We're giving ourselves over to things that are not aligned with the thing that we say that we want. And because I am very clear about the vision that I have for myself, because I am very clear about what it is that I want to do, to the point where I can like literally see it and see myself actively working into it. But now the question becomes, Yolanda, how much action are you putting forward? And so what has been the point of talking about power talking about where our power lies, where it's going, if we are not going to be in action mode. And if you can remember weeks ago where I talked about what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be focused on, we are still in action mode. What actions are you putting toward the thing that you say that you want to do? Those frustrations are nudges from the universe that are saying, remember that thing you said you wanted to do? Remember the dream? Remember the vision? Remember the thing? And believe me, my vision has changed somewhat over the course of this year. Things that I thought that I really wanted to do, I'm like, no, it may not quite be that. So there is always going to be some fine tuning of your vision of the thing that you desire to do. And you are more than capable of fine tuning it and changing it. No one else can do it for you. It's yours. Now you can have input, you can have people that support you, that are invested in you doing well. But ultimately, the decision of what that thing looks like is yours. Hello, my love. How are you? Happy Sunday. And so, I was feeling frustrated on Wednesday. Thank goodness we got that in check because I needed it on Friday to keep a level head. It's like, why is it taking me so long to get home? Maybe this is an opportunity for you to get to a level of I'm determined to work on my vision so that I don't have to experience this again. The traffic nightmares are not my ministry. It's not something that I desire to be a part of. But if I'm not working toward the things that I truly, truly love and truly, truly want to be a part of, then it's going to be part of my experience. How many times are we going to sit and write? Right. The problem is always the solution. It's like, you don't want to do something. I don't want to do this. My heart is no longer in it. I can remember my one of my last therapy sessions. I'm talking about, what I'm currently doing and how it's not really fulfilling and how, I think I have come to the end of it. And I recognize that. And once you have that realization, everything looks different, right? Everything becomes an inconvenience. Everything all of a sudden, the same thing you've been doing over and over and over again, once you have that level of awareness that this is something that I no longer want to do or it's no longer fulfilling, it now becomes an inconvenience. It now becomes, now I got to do this thing. When you've been doing that thing, for me, I've been doing this work for quite some times. I may jump in and I may jump out, and I may jump in and I may jump out. But this is work that I am familiar with to the point where I can do it with my eyes closed. That is no longer fulfilling for me. However, if I'm not actively changing my focus from the thing that's not fulfilling to the thing that is fulfilling, then who am I to complain? Who am I to be frustrated at something that I'm actively participating in? When here is my vision, my dream, it's pulsing, it's sitting there waiting for me to give it the time, the focus, and the attention that it deserves. It's like, I'm here for you. Not only is it there for me, it is there for me and wants to give me the very thing that I desire. Can you imagine the very thing that you dream about, envision, create, and craft, whether anyone else knows about it at all, whether it has been spoken to anyone else at all, is in love with you too? And is like, yeah, as much as you want me, I want you too, but you got to act like you want me. You got to pay attention to me. You have to pour into me. You have to learn about me. You have to respect me. And that's one of the things I thought about in my 2 hour time of getting home. It's like, how much respect have I been giving to my dream and to my vision? How much respect and honor have I placed it on a pedestal? because it is so delicate and it is so important to me. Have I done that? Have you done that? Because we all have the ability to do that. And it doesn't take money, because oftentimes we'll think, well, I can't do the thing that I love to do because I don't have the money to do, I got to do this thing over here because right now this is my source of income. Fair point. And unlike, Beyonce was telling everybody to leave their job, I'm not telling anyone to leave their financial support system. But what I am asking, and what I'm asking myself, is how much of that financial support system also contributes to your unhappiness. Because yikes on bikes, if the thing that is giving you the money is also giving you the stress, you are going to have to make a hard decision. It's almost as if um, it is an abusive relationship. Someone online asked the question, um, how many of us are willing to admit that our workplaces, and I know, Marissa, you know a lot about this, that our workplaces are also abusive relationships. And not, maybe not to the point where someone is physically harming us, but because of our participation in that relationship, we are harming ourselves. Because the one thing that I also recognized about this last week for me, I am so exhausted because of the energy that it takes to do something that my heart is no longer in. The energy it takes, I am now required to replenish that energy, which keeps me from the things that I love to do, whether it's being with my family, whether it's socializing. Like I said, yesterday, I spent all day in bed. My daughter just said to me, well, where were you yesterday? In my room in the bed. I could have been out of the house somewhere else and it would have been unknown to her. It is requiring me to take time away from the things that I love in order to restore and replenish myself. So yikes on bikes. If that is your experience, you got to have a plan in place with a time and a date that says, I'm getting up out of this thing. I can no longer have the place that is literally financing me and filling my bank account is also draining my spirit. What kind of money is that? What kind money being energy? What kind of energy are you replicating on a weekly basis when you know that the very place that pays your bills is also the place that might be contributing to your mental, emotional imbalance? We can't do it. We can't do that, y'all. We just can't do that. And many of us do it for decades. I tell the story all the time about my mother, thinking how great it was to get this plaque that she had spent 25 years at a particular place. She gave them 25 years of her life, and then she only had 10 of her own in retirement. So sad. But it is happening on a daily basis where people are giving themselves. Now, if you love your job, if you love your work, if it's fulfilling to you, then this message is not for you. However, there are also people who love their job, who have fulfilling jobs, who are not stressed, who still think there's something else that I would like to do. You don't have to be in a toxic environment to also say, I would like another experience. I would like to do something else. And it doesn't mean that it's entrepreneurship, because, honey, that ain't for the faint either. It ain't for the faint. It's not. I've said it before that sometimes that can feel like an abusive relationship. Sometimes working for yourself, you feel like you're abusing yourself. It's like, how many times am I going to put myself out there and do these particular things? And it's not giving me what I believe I either deserve or what I've worked for, where it doesn't feel like it's equitable. Like you've put so much out, but what you're receiving in return just doesn't seem to be equitable. That is very much entrepreneurship, and that can also feel like an abusive relationship. Um, but just think about that. That again, I had 2 hours on Friday as I was trying to navigate the traffic nightmares of how do I get from one place to another place that typically would take 20 minutes, and now it's taking me 2 hours. Whew. Yes, we need to talk about that as well. When you are the abusive boss, because sometimes when we've spent our lifetime working in particular environments, we pick up habits and behaviors that we think will serve us well if we're working for ourselves. I think I've told the story about when I first started my business in 2017. I am a trained massage therapist. And so I'm going to start my own massage therapy business in 2017, and I tried to model it off of a popular franchise. If they were doing particular things, I was going to do those particular things. And even when I was in massage school, some of what was told to us in terms of starting a business, a lot of those same basic business principles of the spa or wellness industry were taught to us. And of course, we're gobbling it up. It's like, okay, these people are successful. Of course, I'm going to do what, someone who has some success has done. I'm going to model that behavior, only to discover that I became the abusive boss because I'm telling myself, well, you got to be up to 1 o'clock in the morning doing this, and you've got to stretch yourself thin. And if somebody asks you to do something, you better say yes. You got to get out there and do this, because that is what this franchise was doing. I'm not a franchise. I'm one person. And yet I was holding myself to the same standards of, you know, corporations that have multiple people working for them and doing particular things. And sometimes we do that when we're going into entrepreneurship. Sometimes even on our job, we adopt principles, we adopt behaviors that are abusive in nature, but we've been told, well, this is how you get ahead in business. This is what you have to do. You have to stay up late at night. I was just, watching someone talking about, well, I take work calls when I'm at home at 9 o'clock at night because that's how I stay ahead. If that works for you, have at it. But if you know in your heart of hearts that that type of living is not for you, and you will know because you will be out of balance, you will be unhealthy, you will be all of the things that are hurting and harming you can be, you know, you can count that the job has something to do with it. If your job is one of the number one stressors of your life, and you just accept that as, well, this is the way the world is, this is the way life is. And if that works for you, then I'm not talking to you. But if you know it doesn't, if you know it doesn't, if you know that there is another way that you would like to exist, pay your bills, live the lifestyle that you desire to live without it costing you so much. And I don't mean financially, I mean costing you mentally and emotionally and physically. And sometimes you have to get to a particular age where you recognize and realize, this is not what I want to do. But yet and still, we've all been, programmed in society that in order for you to get to a particular place in life, you've got to damn near kill yourself to prove. And many of us have shown and proved and proved and shown and shown and proved, and we are still fighting for recognition, fighting for equitable compensation, still fighting for so many different things where we've already proven that we deserve them. Hey, Miss Erica, how you doing? Ooh, let me tell you, I never understood how hairstylists did it. I just because for me, it's like you're already having to focus on every single individual that sits in your chair, what it is they want, what they don't want, what they're bringing into the space. But then you're also a business. It's like you're a therapist and also a business, leader. You also have to think of the bottom line. You got to think of the product. You got to think of the time. Like I have applauded every single person that I've ever known in the beauty arena because it is just a hard thing to do. And if you don't have the boundaries set, people will just assume, because sometimes you make it easy, people will just assume that you're not working hard. You're just doing hair. It's not just doing hair. It's not just doing nails. It's not just doing, skincare. It wasn't just doing massages. I can't tell you the number of people who thought it was just okay to come late, stay late, not pay, not, ugh, I got stories for days thinking, well, you're just rubbing on people on a table. That's not all it is. Trust me. It's one of the reasons why I no longer do it. Because when you are providing a service for people, sometimes, as I said last week, people gonna people. If nothing else, we can trust on people being people. And sometimes that means that you don't see me as human. You see me as the service I'm providing, and you don't recognize all of the things that I have to do and be in order for me to provide this service. So kudos to you, Erica, for doing that. Listen, 42, I was going to say more like 82 because when it's just you and yet and still you have to function like a multi, employed operation. As I said before, it ain't for the faint. I'm sure you have in that chair. I'm sure you have. There's something about sitting in any capacity where someone is taking care of you that makes you feel like I'm going to tell you all my business. And the emotional weight, that is one of the reasons I became a spiritual life coach. Because as I was providing massage and Reiki for individuals, and they're telling me literally all of their business, all of their trauma, I'm feeling it in their body. I said, there has got to be a way for me to be responsible with this information that I'm receiving. And I don't want people to leave this space feeling as if the physical aspect of their service didn't do the job, because I recognize that, as a massage therapist, I may be working on you physically, but I know there's a mental and emotional component to why your body feels the way it feels. And that's what led me to become a spiritual life coach, because I was like, I need to be responsible for all of this information. I need to support and facilitate all of this stuff that is coming out. And so I would love to return to massage, but then again, that would give me 42 more jobs that I would then be responsible for. So as we are continuing the conversation about how we care for ourselves, how we, as the kids say, stand on business, meaning if I am telling myself that I'm working towards particular things in my life that align with who I believe myself to be, how do I do that without becoming just another abusive boss, just another abusive employee? Because I will admit that there are times in this business that I am not the best employee that I could be. I will admit that I want, some leisure in my work. How many times do I take my laptop into the bed? Because I'm like, well, at least I can be comfortable while I'm doing this work. And it's like, as a boss, that's a no no. It's like we have particular things that we need to do. And if you are going to be a business owner, you really have to be serious about it. You can't play around. You really can't play around. However, if there is a dream, if there is a vision, if there is something that you and the universe are working together hand in hand, believe me that you are also going to be given the resources and the tools necessary to support that vision and that dream. We need more convincing than the universe. The universe don't need no convincing. It's already detailed. We need to be convinced. And so while I would never tell anybody just quit your job and move on into the thing that you love to do, what I will say is you better have a plan in place. Create a plan that makes sense, put action toward it. It can't just be words. It can't just be, well, I'm continuously talking about how frustrated I am at this job, or even in the business. Maybe you're a business owner and you're like, you know what, this ain't what I thought it was. And this is not the vision and the dream that I have for my life. Maybe you want to go work with or for someone else. I think we also need to be supportive of people whose dreams include working with other people. I had a client one time, and I think I've talked about this before, where she had dreams um, of being a media personality. And she was just like, but I'm really, really shy and I don't like talking in front of people. I said, well, that's going to be a hurdle for you. If it's not something that comes naturally, if it's not something that you're comfortable with, then that might be a barrier or hurdle for you. I said, but let's think about that, because not everyone is created to be a media personality. However, every media personality that you know of has a team of people that work with them so that the dream is realized. I said, so you may not think that being part of the team is part of your vision and part of your dream, but it might be. And is it really about you being in the forefront, or is it about the dream being realized? And so the example that I used for her was Oprah. I said, you know, Oprah has a long time producer. I think her name is Sally. I could be wrong. I said, now, every once in a while, for those of you who used to watch the Oprah show, she would bring her out. She'd have her headset on and she, would kind of be like, I don't want to be on camera, because that wasn't her thing. But if she wasn't good at her job, then Oprah couldn't be at her job. I said, so the dream was still being realized. And I guarantee you, she could go home at night thinking, I did great work today. Look at the show that I produced. For those of you who are of a certain age, like there was a time when talk show land was ruled by one man and one man only, and that man was Phil Donahue. And you couldn't tell my mother and her sisters and her friends that Phil Donahue wasn't God. You know, faithful watchers had faithful following for years. And then this little show out of Chicago started airing. And the next thing you know, there was a new talk show queen. She didn't get there by herself. If she didn't have a team of people working behind her, we would have never seen that dream realized. And so, as we are thinking about our vision, as we are thinking about the things that we would like to be a part of, it doesn't always mean that you have to be at the head. It doesn't always mean that it has to be all on you. It doesn't always mean it's entrepreneurship. It doesn't always mean that it has to look like someone else's. But trust and believe that if you have something in your heart, for that thing to become possible, the universe will support you. It may not look the way you think it's going to look, but if you keep listening to those nudges, those whispers, like I said, my the traffic nightmare last week, that was a nudge for me. It's like, you don't like this. You don't like to be. Listen, if I'm in a car longer than 20 minutes, I start to get antsy. And as far as driving, I don't even like to really drive anymore. When I have to drive, I have to turn into a completely different person. I like to be driven around. um and to think of all of the years that I can't wait to get my license. I can't wait to get my license. And now that I have it, I could care less if I'm going to drive anywhere. However, I recognize and realize that where I am in my life right now, I don't always have to be in charge. I can be a part of something. And if the work is to support people in believing themselves, I'm okay being a part of the work. It has taken a long time for me to get to that truth because in my mind, I thought I still think it has to be me. Now that may sound odd coming from someone who is creating the community, but creating the community is more about how can I support other people, not necessarily how do I just support myself. Because I recognize I'm not going to be here forever. There are particular things in my life that I would still love to do that me being the sole person in my business doing them are not it's not going to afford me the time to do that. And so we've been talking about where our power is going all year. I am also coming to the realization that the vision that I have for myself, it might be changing. The way in which it's executed, it also might be changing. But one thing is for sure, and two things is for certain. Where my time, where my attention, and where my focus is currently is not where I would like for it to be. And it's time to make a shift. It is time to, as the kids say, stand on business and say, if this is what you really want, then you have to provide the action for it to happen. Because a dream that's just a dream on paper is just a dream. When we give life to those dreams, when we put some blood and some breath into it, some actual participation in action where things are actually moving, that's when it becomes real. That's when it becomes alive. I was, before I came on, I was looking at my um, dictionary here, my New Thought dictionary about power. And there are no less than one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, about 12 definitions, different definitions of power. The one that I underline, and I hope I can see that I can read for you right now, is the power we seek, we already possess. Power is, we use it. It already exists at the center of our being. We should learn to use it consciously and constructively. And I thought about that. It's like, yeah, I recognize how I use my personal power consciously, like reframing the things that are happening in my life in such a way that it pushes me forward. So I'm not frustrated. I'm not disappointed. I'm not holding on to negativity. I'm, as we said earlier, I'm looking at the problem to find the solution. It's like, okay, I'm frustrated or I'm feeling feelings of frustration rise. What is that really? That's a nudge. That's a push. That's a awareness that you are somewhere that you do not desire to be. And so get yourself into a place where you desire to be. Get around people, get around things, have conversations that support the you that you desire to be. Stop engaging in distractions. You know, my second commandment to myself is thou shalt not create distractions. How many of us are really thinking deep down to the root of how am I participating in aligning myself with the thing that I love? Because there are absolutely things that I know that we are all doing that push us away from that. We may not always be mindful of it, but part of the practice, part of the job, part of the responsibility, part of the development is identifying when you are pushing yourself away from your own dream. And that happens when we are giving our time, our focus, and attention to the things that are not aligned with who we desire to be. Again, I recognize the privilege that comes with saying, Don't think about that job if that job is not part of your dream. Now, we want to be responsible. If you are being paid to do a particular job, I'm not telling you to don't don't care about your job and just, take the paycheck and put all of your time, attention, and energy into what it is that you want to do. You have entered into a contract with someone. Honor the contract. If you are to show up from this time to that time to provide a particular service, expertise, whatever it is you are being paid to do it and do it well until you figure out or create a plan and call Marissa if that's what you want to do. Create a plan that works that for you transitioning, or call me because that's one of the things that I love to coach people in is okay, what's next? And how are you working towards what's next? Do you have a prayer that you pray every morning that's about what's next? Do you have a solid intention? And are you living your life from that particular intention that puts you towards your what's next? Or are you waiting for something to fall out of the sky? Are you waiting for a phone call to come? Are you waiting for something to drop on your front porch? I don't operate in those kind of occurrences, but I can absolutely support you in creating a plan that says, okay, I'm moving towards this. But it has to be serious and you have to be invested and you have to be willing to take a risk. That's what true power is. As it says, it is all around us. How are you using it consciously and constructively? The constructive part is the plan. If you are getting up in the morning, and I pray that all of us do that tomorrow, is that plan on your mind? Or are you so focused on what those other people have planned for you today that you don't even fit into your own daily day-to-day schedule? At this point, I believe we all have smartphones, and just about every smartphone that I've ever seen comes with a calendar. How much of you is on your calendar versus other people? I get alerts sent to my email and to my alarm. I have it set so that my phone is literally telling me these are the things that you said you wanted to do, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes from the time, 15 minutes from the time, 30 minutes from the time, however you decide you need to set it up. That's what works for me. I'm going to give you time to transition into these things that you say that you want to do. Now, whether or not I do them is on me. My phone can't do all of the work, but I have set up my life in such a way that I can't act like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot to pray. Oh, I forgot to meditate. And I'm even catching myself more and more because I've set myself up for success in that way, where I'm like, oh, what would be great if we did this? And I'm like, is this energy that you're going to be putting towards somebody else's project, or is this energy that you're going to be putting towards your own product? And I'll shut it down. My contract with the people who pay me money, though, that's the boundary. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm contracted to do. All of those extra things that I used to do, can't do those anymore. I have to focus on me and what it is that I need to do so that my timeline adds up. If I say by this date I want to be fully functional in this particular area of my life, then I better be working towards that date. And how many of us have done that? Where we tell ourselves, okay, by this date I'm going to be doing this, and then the date comes and then we haven't done it. We haven't worked towards it because our time and attention is somewhere else. For those of you who are familiar with Tiffany Aliche, who is the Budgetnista, I am always reminded of where she was to where she is now. I think it was I want to say it was 2012 or 2013. I was still living in New Jersey. And there was a time, and even Tiffany will talk about this, where she used to drive around in her little white Toyota Corolla and do financial parties. And I had a financial party. I got a bunch of my girlfriends and friends together, women together. And Tiffany came, she drove from Newark to South Jersey. We had a hotel conference room, and she walked us through. I think several people bought her book, her first book that night. Um, and we talked about getting our finances together. And now she does that on a global scale. But she will tell you she always had a plan in place. It was, this is what I'm doing now, but by this date, I'm going to be doing this. And then by that date, I'm going to be doing this, and constantly working towards it. And so I'm always amazed at her progression, because I could see where she was, and what she said she wanted to do, she has done it. But she will even tell you that it's because she had to stop pouring herself into other places. And it may not be pretty for the first couple of months, years. It may not be. That might be, as they say, the grunt work. And we also have to recognize and realize when we don't want to do the grunt work. Some of us just don't want to do it. It's hard, hard work to start over, to live a different life, to do another thing. It can be very hard, particularly when you're used to a particular lifestyle, a particular way of doing things. When I said I was going to go back to starting the mindful morning moments, I was like, okay, I'm already up, but now I have to be up and doing another thing. And some mornings it's difficult. I've actually missed a couple of morning mind movements. For those of you in the Evolve community, I you may not have seen me posting them because I haven't been able to do them, because I've been so overwhelmed physically. It's like now I can't even do the things that I love to do, because I'm what? Trying to recover from the things that I no longer am interested in doing. Hmm. Marissa said she's had to tell herself the same thing, that you've been hiding behind other people. Whew, child. Isn't it a wonderful thing when you can be honest with yourself, and even say, let's be transparent. It has been a great excuse for me to say that I have something else I got to do, instead of focusing on the thing that I really love to do and really want to do. Sometimes it's a convenient excuse to say, well, I can't do that because I got to do this thing over here. Well, now I'm at the point in my life experience where that other thing takes me about an hour to do. It doesn't take me any time at all, which for me is, I'd like to be engaged. I'd like to constantly be challenged. That thing is no longer challenging. And if I'm not careful, it's going to become so boring that my productivity is going to decline. Because when I'm not excited about something, when I'm bored with something, I don't always give it the attention that it deserves. I know that about myself. And so, yes, we have to be very, very honest with ourselves in terms of our vision. You might want to do the thing, but are you really going to do it? Are you going to give it the justice it deserves? Are you going to give it the respect that it deserves? Because it's your vision. That thing should be as precious to you as a newborn baby. Like, you're just not going to let anybody hold it. People want to come over and cough in its face. You're like, this is my baby. You can't do that. Your vision, your dream should be as precious as life itself. But that also means that you have to respect it, and not just leave it on the shelf, and not just leave it in your journal, and not just continuously talk about this is what I want to do and not actively do it. Because that's true, true power. Acknowledging that it's present, knowing that it's been there the whole time, and then saying, I trust it to be there when I need it. Last week, I said, are we ready now? Now that we've seen all that we needed to see, now that things have been exposed and that have literally been in our face all this time, it's so interesting to me how all of a sudden people who were really, really quiet all of a sudden are really, really loud. Ooh, now I can talk freely. I can't stand the diversity and inclusion bull crap at my job. I can't stand having to be nice to people that I think are beneath me. I think I just saw some person say, "Oh, I'm so glad that being nice to people is no longer um, the way we have to be. That we can be as nasty and as bad as we want to be." Really, thank you for showing your true colors. Thank you for all the respectability politics that have been going on. They're like gloves off. We are going to be as nasty and as mean as we want to be this whole time. Or have we been lying to ourselves? Were we lying to ourselves when we saw all of these movements happening? Were we believing? Did we drink the Kool-Aid? Maybe we drank the Kool-Aid, y'all. Maybe we were part of the cult and didn't know it, believing people at face value when they were saying, oh, yeah, we want to work together. Oh, yeah, we want to honor you. When the whole time it was, what's that show? It was Agatha all along. Oh, my goodness. It was MAGA all along. All of that work that was supposed to be happening. Maybe people really did, maybe people were just like, you know what? It's a lot of work giving up privilege. I'm not ready to give up my privilege. It's a lot of work being an activist. It is. And it might mean that you have to give some things up. And I guess people were just like, you know what? I don't want to give none of that up. I was just saying what I thought you wanted me to say. When it really came down to it, as they say, when the rubber meets the road and people recognize and realize you might have to give up friendships, you might have to give up your privileged status, you might have to make some people in your family upset and angry, they decided, you know what? I'm not willing to give all of that up. So maybe we were gaslighting ourselves, but maybe we have now come to a realization that if I don't do the things that I want to do, because I've been so concerned about aligning myself with people who didn't really want to be aligned with me anyway. I'm worried about my children playing in particular places. I'm worried about living in particular places. I'm worried about doing what they've been doing. Because for me, that's, I've made it. If I can emulate someone else's life, that means I've made it. And that might be okay for you. Right, who have never demonstrated that they even know what the best is. But yet, we want to believe, or we wanted to believe that people had, good intention, when all along it was, no, I'm here to look out for myself. When it comes down to it, I'm not willing to lose anything. We really got to see people's lack of integrity. So, what do you do with that? Do we run and hide, or do we say, okay, now it's time for me to get real serious about what it is that I want to do? Now it's time for me to be really serious and recognize that all of this time, attention, and effort that I'm putting into somebody else's dream is really not doing the work that I believe that it does. It's with the movie Wicked about to come out. It's almost like we're all looking behind that curtain to realize that Oz never had any power. He just Oz just made people believe that he had power, but that we have our own power, and we may not have been using it for ourselves and for our collective community because we were fighting so hard to live a life or live a dream that was never ours to begin with. It might have been the one that we were told, the one we were sold, or the one we behold. That lesson as old as time, making people think and believe that what they really want is what we have. Well, if I have to lose my soul and my integrity to have it, I don't want it. I don't want it. If I have to see other people suffer just so that I get ahead, so that I get particular things, I don't want it. Because I know what price that is, what that comes with. It just is so sickening to me that anyone would ever be okay with other people suffering so that I can get ahead, so that they can get ahead. I hope I never, ever get that devoid of a soul, that I think that I have to participate in particular things or do particular things or turn my back on particular people just so that I'm okay. And I fear that I may have been participating in that on some level. And maybe that's also some of the realization that we are having, that we have been active participants in a lot of BS. And we should never be using our power in that way. I think about particular people who, have amassed a large fortune and they didn't get there by themselves. And I think about, you know what? I've been an active participant in that. I will fully admit to being on Amazon like a fool during the pandemic and putting more money in particular people's pockets who would step over my dying body if it meant making another dime. I think we all have to think about our own power and how we've been using it and where we've been placing it and how we've been making particular people, how we've been giving people power who have misused it and who have not been honest about what they are choosing to do with that power. There's a lot for us to think about. There's a lot for us to still process. But one thing I know, my time, my attention, my focus has to be in places and spaces where people are loving one another, supporting one another through all of this mess. you know, um, None of us knows how much time we will be gifted to do the work, which is why it's important to do the work as often as possible. Um, but also recognizing that the work sometimes is thankless. The work sometimes is challenging and will create particular things in your life that you feel like this is not worth it. But it is. On a grand scale, it is. Um, I will be the first to admit that I am terrified about some of the choices and the decisions that I am making for myself. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how successful it will be. I don't know what it's going to require me to be. I might, as I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, this might be a beans month. My mother used to say that all the time. Like when the budget was looking a particular way, and she'd be like, well, it's going to be beans and rice for the next month. And what that meant is we're not going out to eat. No, don't even think about asking for McDonald's. You're going to eat what has been provided. We're not going to have, sometimes in my household, we would have more than one thing served for dinner based upon what people liked and didn't like. None of that. It's going to be leftover city for a couple of days. And it may mean that for many of us. Doesn't mean that there's going to be this overflowing land of milk and honey for everyone, which is why community and connection is so important, because we may have to feed one another. We may have to clothe one another. We may have to house one another. We don't know what the next couple of years is going to look like. But what I do know is I want to be on the right side of history, and I also want to be on the right side of the collective consciousness. I don't want to be um, running from, I want to be running towards. And I read that and posted about that in the Evolved community, that as we are figuring things out for ourselves, as we are resting, as we are creating community, please do not let it come from the energy of, I'm afraid. There's a very big difference in running away from something and running towards something. And so my restoration is a return to my commitment to having a deeper relationship with God. It's not running from anyone or anything. As a matter of fact, I'm not even really concerning myself with what other people are doing, because I'm focusing on what am I returning to? What am I remembering that I forgot oh so long ago? Because each and every single one of us that came into existence did so knowing the unknown, if that makes sense. Newborn babies don't know what they're in for, but yet they know everything. They know that this particular experience that I have had no longer serves me. So I've got to move into another experience. There is so much wisdom in the birthing experience that I don't think I think we take for granted, that the newborn baby that has no experience in the world knows exactly when it's time to leave one particular experience and into another, without knowing anything but knowing all things, without being to communicate but also being able to communicate the needs, the wants, the desires. Mm. It's just, when we think about it, it's beautiful. And so that's how I'm thinking about this new experience. Terrified, but knowing and trusting and believing that I'm going to be okay. We will all be okay. Some of us, it may be very difficult and challenging to get to that point, which is why we practice, which is why, we create moments like this, so you don't think, am I crazy? Is something wrong with me? No, you're trying to figure out a new experience. And yet, there is some wisdom for each and every single one of us. When you think about some of the worst circumstances of your life, and you had no clue, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get through this? How is this not going to take me under? Somehow, some way, you managed. Not without battle scars, not without, some residual effects, but you did manage. And that is true about other experiences. And sometimes we forget. We forget what we're built of, what we're made of. We forget, oh, yeah, that thing, that divorce, that death, that loss, that saying goodbye to someone who is still very much alive, but yet your part in their part in your story has to come to an end, or at least has to have some particular boundaries on it. Very difficult experiences, human experiences that we go through, that we get through. And sometimes when we're on the other side of it, we don't always remember how dark, how um, horrific it was. Sometimes we don't forget, but sometimes we forget, yeah, you got through that. And it may not have been overnight. It may not have been in a month's time, a year's time. It may be something that you're still climbing out of and oftentimes feel like you return to. I was just having a moment before, we started. I was like, not right now. I'm about to go. I'm about to go online. I can't be weepy right now. But I remind myself often, you have been through the worst. You will get through these inconveniences. You will get through these challenges. You will get through. If you just keep moving forward, you will get through. If you keep believing, you will get through. If you keep reminding yourself what you are made of and who you are co creating with, you will get through. Hello, my love, Giselle. We will. We absolutely will. Some days it feels like, yeah, I can't do this, which is like I said, why yesterday I was very clear. I am resting. I'm not doing anything else but resting this mind, resting this body. I'm grateful that I was able to do that, and I even pushed away those thoughts of, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing this and that's not getting done and that's not getting addressed. It's like it will or it won't. But I know my priority right now is rest. And I'm grateful for that. Um, I'm also grateful for being able to freely express in this forum and in others because I recognize that as a privilege. I have to acknowledge that there are individuals who do not have that privilege, that they might be feeling similar things that we are feeling and not able to express them. I'm grateful for Marissa, who had a great live on Thursday, where ever people can come together to express what they are feeling, it is a gift and a privilege because there are individuals who are living with something in their mind and in their body right now, and it's just stuck there. Either because they're in an environment where it's not safe for them to express, or they may have grown up in a culture where that's just not done. We have to acknowledge that there are individuals who have grown up in a culture of silence where expressing how you feel or what you're thinking is just not acceptable. You just don't do it. It could absolutely mean your death, or at the very least, somebody coming to lock you up. I'm thinking of, when you think about individuals who've grown up in countries like North Korea, you free thinkers, you better, no, it's not allowed. And so if you've not lived in that kind of environment, you may not have developed the skill to freely express yourself. Or again, it could be the woman that you sit next to at the job who is in an experience where she can't express how she feels. She may not even know how she feels because it's just something that, has never been done. You could be in a relationship with someone. There could be a whole man in front of you who does not know what it means to express themselves freely. So I recognize that in those places and spaces where we're able to do that, it is a privilege. It absolutely is a right of every human, but it's not a right that is afforded to every human. And so I want to acknowledge that, we can't just come on talking about you got to do this and you got to do that and think that we all have the ability to do so. We don't. We don't. And there are individuals right now who are just discovering that freedom, which to me is also precious. There might be, because of what has occurred in the past, couple of weeks, an individual who's like, something about this does not feel right in my spirit, and I'm ready to talk about it. And I may not have felt like I was in a safe environment to do that because maybe my parents, didn't afford me that opportunity, or maybe my friend group. There are people who are in friend groups who are stuck on silent because they recognize that their views, their feelings may not be accepted by the group that they belong to. And so therefore I'm not going to say anything. Or I'm starting to realize that I think differently than the people that I live with and the people that I love, and I'm ready to share that. And so as we are talking about power, let us also acknowledge that there are individuals who are on different pathways of discovering what their power is or what it isn't. I would gather that there are some individuals who have had some reawakening over the past couple of days of this just doesn't feel right. I'm not this just doesn't feel right in my spirit. And I may not have the language to say what it is, but something just not does not feel right. And so for any one of us who might be at any particular position of acknowledging and coming into our power, let us also recognize and realize that there are some individuals who may not be there yet, that we might come in contact with them, and we have no right to push them further along at a different pace and a different speed just because they may not be where we are. I did have to do some unfollowing on social media, not because I don't like people anymore, but because the language that they were using is just not what I need to hear right now. It just doesn't align with where I want my time and my focus and my attention to be. And some of these people, I absolutely love them, but the messaging just doesn't align with who I am in this moment. And so I needed to just say this is just something I don't need to see right now. Part of recognizing and acknowledging your power is also recognizing and acknowledging things that may disrupt your power or you feeling powerful and you having to make the choice and decision for yourself to say, this does not align. This does not align for me right now. This is not something that I can participate in right now because I'm working on something else. It may not be easy to do, but when we were talking about integrity, that's integrity. When you're able to say, I might even love to engage in this kind of behavior, but right now it's taking me away from the version of me that I'm working on. The version of me that I am working on and working towards just doesn't align in this space, doesn't align with what I'm consuming. And so I have to make those choices and decisions for myself. Um, Similar to last week, I was like, do you have a meditation this week, Yolanda? No. And just like I said when I started, we're not going to be long. And here we are at that point. Um, I may not have a meditation, but I absolutely do have something that I would like to read. Please don't laugh at my glasses. These are the glasses that I put on and then I fall asleep in the bed when I'm reading something and then they get crushed. That's why they that's why they are crooked. So I do have something that I would like to read if I can find it. It comes from Iyanla Van Zant. And let me show the book. One day my soul just opened up. You said cute. Cute and cockeyed. No matter how many times I fix them, every time I put them on, um, and I fall asleep with them, this is what happens. They get all crooked. Hmm. Whew. Okay. So I think one of the most powerful things that we can discover about ourselves is how to love every single thing about ourselves. It is a constant practice for me because I know if I was given a piece of paper and someone said list 10 things that you love about yourself and 10 things that you don't love about yourself. The things that I don't love about myself, I probably could do like that. The things that I love about myself, I could come up with 10, but it might take me longer because I recognize that there are still particular places in here that I haven't learned to love fully. You know, it's easy to love the particular things that we do well. It's easy to love the things that other people acknowledge. It's not so easy sometimes to love everything about you. Um, Earlier this morning, I'm looking at my face and I got a bump right here. And you might have noticed that I dyed my hair, I bleached my hair again. Like I'm trying to find the perfect shade. Like there's always something that we can look at, find, and say, well, I want to work on that or I want to change that, whatever. Um, Within this book, One Day My Soul Just Opened Up, there is and I don't really want to call it a chapter. They're actually cataloged as days because the full title is 40 Days and 40 Nights Towards Spiritual Strength and Personal Growth. I love day 40. Day 40 is about unconditional love. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read the part that speaks to us discovering our power. Um, hmm. When you have lived most of your life believing there is something terribly wrong with you, unconditional love will show you the truth. When you are able to convince yourself that no matter what you do, you still are not good enough, unconditional love will show you the truth. When you give the demands of your ego and your very human habits catchy little new age names, unconditional love will strip away everything you are hiding, dangle it before your eyes, and quietly whisper to you, how are you going to deal with this, sweetie? Mm. Whew. I'm going to skip a part because I'm not ready to read it. um, this is God in your face, asking nothing of you and giving you everything God has. This is the activity of God's unconditional love, moving you out of fear, out of your self imposed limitations, out of the temporary lust of your physical mind into the unexplored territory of your heart. Are you open to that experience or have you been giving lip service to it? I'm going to read that part again. Are you open to that experience or have you been given lip service to it? Are you afraid that you cannot control what is going on, so you want to run away from it? Are you afraid that all of the garbage you have been telling yourself about yourself is just that, garbage? Are you afraid to discover that all the things you have told yourself about God and about love are actually true? When there is a battle going on in your mind, some part of you will be forced to surrender, forced to tell the truth, forced to give up the stronghold it has on your mind. In the pursuit or presence of unconditional love, you must surrender. You must tell the truth. You must let go of the ego. Mm. And she writes, quietly, I allowed myself to answer yes. I was afraid to be loved unconditionally. For many of us, one of the reasons why we do not stand fully in our power is because we are afraid to be loved unconditionally. We are afraid to admit that we believe the terrible things that we say about ourselves or that other people have said. And part of doing this work is unlearning that, unlearning that, unlearning that, unlearning that. And it takes a lot. And as I said earlier, I will confess that sometimes it's easier for me to focus on other people because then I don't have to focus on myself. It's a convenient excuse. We all have them. Convenient excuses as to why we won't believe in ourselves, trust ourselves, bet on ourselves, go all in. You know, if life was a poker game, would you be willing to push all of your chips into the middle of the table and say, I'm going all in on me, I'm betting on me? Some of us have challenges with doing that because we are afraid to be loved unconditionally. Where love is, there is no fear. And would we allow ourselves to have the experience to feel the presence of God's unconditional love? It can feel, and I may be just speaking for myself, it can feel overwhelming to actually believe that all of who you are is loved. Every single thing about you is loved unconditionally. It can feel like, whew, no, but what about, my propensity to, doing this thing? And what about the time when I was 10 and I told that lie and no one knows that it was a lie? And what about I didn't work out today? And what about when I said I was gonna, write my book and I haven't written anything? And we can come up with so many reasons why we shouldn't be loved, why we shouldn't be held in high regard. When other people do it to us, we ready to fight, but when we do it to ourselves, we succumb. We succumb to it. We succumb to it. It's part of being human. How many of us are really ready to admit that I'm willing to experience God's unconditional love? And that means I got to start believing in myself. I have to start trusting myself. I have to start betting on myself. Have to start living from a place of courage. I have to tell people no. I have to set boundaries. I have to stop whining and crying about what didn't happen or what did happen, and I have to stand on. And I think we touched on this when we talked about reparenting. Part of reparenting is also saying, my parents did what they could. Sometimes they did a good job, sometimes they did a crappy job, but it's now my responsibility to take this thing over and undo what I believe needs to be undone. And that means loving myself in ways that I may not have loved myself in ways before. That means owning up to all that I am. Whether I'm making mistakes on a daily basis, whether I'm choosing the right things or not, I still have to love me. I still have to believe in me. I still have to bet on me. I still have to stop coming up with reasons why it can't be me, or I can't do it, or this is too big or too monumental. That doesn't align with God's unconditional love. And somewhere I wrote, I don't know what I did with it. I hope I didn't throw it away. I wrote on a piece of paper to remind myself that if I don't believe in myself, then I don't believe in God. And if I don't believe in God, then what's the point? For me, it may not be the same for you. And so let me put my crooked glasses back on and go on to read that the energy in which we live, move, and have our being is God's unconditional love. The power that permeates every atom, cell, and molecule of my being. It's God's unconditional love. If you hear that or say that and it feels funny, then keep saying it until it doesn't. The power that permeates every atom, cell, and molecule of my being is God's unconditional love. It is the thing that gets me up in the morning and allows me to rest at night. Change that if that's not the way you sleep. There is no energy greater than God's unconditional love. There is no power stronger than God's unconditional love. There is no reality that I desire to know more than God's unconditional love. Let me remember, there is only one love, God's love. God's love for me is unconditional. Where there is unconditional love, there is no fear. God loves me no matter what. I My ears are burning right now because I recognize that even reading that, hearing that, and I've read this book, I can't tell you how many times. I've had it since the 90s. Um, and still, here we are, hearing that and reading that and still feeling that. That is so big. It's just too big. It's just too big. Like the hair is literally tingling on my scalp when I think about all of the things that I want to do and how that is also aligned with God's unconditional love. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel like, who, me? Yes, you, all of us, every single one of us, being loved unconditionally, despite whatever you want to add. And so to go into anything with a measure of fear, it will start to spill over into all things. Like if I say today, I'm going to, write part of my book. And if I do that with a shred of, well, I don't even really believe that anyone is going to read this book, then what I write is going to be peppered with that. It's going to be seasoned with that. But imagine what would happen if before we did whatever it is that we do, we peppered it with, this is seasoned with God's unconditional love. Mwah. It is a masterpiece already. Before you've written anything, before you've created anything, before you've sung anything, before you've formed anything with your hands, if you season it with what I am creating right now is aligned with God's unconditional love. If that doesn't diminish the fear that can sometimes overpower our work, whatever it is your work is, whatever it is that you have determined is your purpose, is your passion, maybe you haven't discovered what it is just yet. But if you season it with what I am about to do is covered by God's unconditional love, it just feels like you're about to create something for the ages. Yeah, yes, wow. That's what it feels like. That's what it can be. But we have to believe it. We have to surrender to that every single day and maybe every single moment. Whenever that ego is about to whisper in your ear, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? Or they've already counted you out. So what are you doing? Sit down somewhere. It's impossible for you to do that. If the next pervasive thought isn't, but what I'm doing is aligned with God's unconditional love for me. Like, shut up. Little voice that is trying to distract me and take me down. Be quiet. God's unconditional love is speaking right now. And that's all I want to hear. That's all I want to hear. That's all I want to believe in. I don't care what those people are doing, what they're saying. I don't care what they're building. I might have one eye open just to make sure that they're not, trying to hurt or harm me. But guess what I'm doing over here? And part of me believing in God's unconditional love means I have to believe that for everyone, not just the people I like, not just the people that look like me. And that can be the hardest thing. That can be one of the hardest things because I know in my mind, I have created some enemies over the past 3 weeks. There's a definitive enemy list. Like, you not my friend, you not my friend. You are definitely not invested in my well being, even if you think you are or you say you are. I know it's a lie. Like, I know each and every single one of us can formulate a list of people or entities where we're like, nope, mm-mm. But if I believe it for myself, I believe it for all beings. And I also believe that God's unconditional love is not going to hurt or harm me. So I don't have to believe in man. I can believe in what I know to be true that's living within me. It is challenging to stay in that energy when people are out here peopling. It is challenging to find that resolve when we are seeing things unfold in front of our eyes that look like um what's the name for death, the grim reaper walking. It literally looks like evil incarnate in front of us, where we're literally like, what is happening? What are you doing? I can't focus on that because I have living within me, within every cell, within every membrane of my being, God's unconditional love. That's what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm putting my energy towards. And I know that's what's going to push me into the things that I desire so that I no longer have to have nudges from the universe. Universe, you don't need to tap me on my shoulder anymore. You don't need to tap me on my forehead to say, this is what you think. It's frustration. This is me showing you you are not where you want to be. So make some choices, make some decisions, put your time and attention towards the thing that you say that you love. Stop playing around. So I guess that's the meditation, y'all. Let us stop playing around. And I say all of that to say it may take time for you to build that up in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, where you're like, game on, I'm ready. Again, one day my soul just opened up. I read the part that I could read without losing all of it because there is other language in that passage that I know would have had me sniveling like a baby because I know it and you know it. Yeah, take yourself very seriously because God takes you serious. I say that often, and I probably haven't said it often enough that God is very serious about me, and about you. I know God is serious about me because I've seen her work. I've seen the experiences that she has taken me through. So I know she's very serious about me because I don't think that I would be in the midst of some of these lessons if there wasn't something huge and enormous for me to learn. I think I would have been left alone. And there are times where I'm like, please leave me alone. I don't want to learn anything else. But I recognize and realize, as my mother said to me oh so long ago, God must really think a lot about you for you to be going through an experience that you think you can't go through, that you are absolutely about to come through. Huh. Whew. Yes, take yourself seriously always. Bet on yourself. I I um I don't know if y'all saw or watched Martha Stewart's documentary. There might be something wrong with Martha. I'm not going to diagnose her with any particular thing, but this is what I learned from Martha Stewart. There was another clip where someone asked her about imposter syndrome. She was like, "What are you talking about?" She was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "People kept talking about a glass ceiling. I didn't know what they were talking about." It's like she doesn't even bother herself with trivial nonsense that looks like she's not going to win or that she is doesn't know what she's doing. Like she doesn't even bother herself with that. And I love that for her. And I would like for all of us to adopt a little bit of that. You know, when we were questioning our own abilities, like, please, she don't even have time to entertain it. Now that's what she says to us. We don't know if that's true, but I believe it because I see the product of it. Like when people question her, she's just like, "Who are you talking to?" Like I know who I am. I know who I am. I know how smart I am. I trust in my abilities. I'm not going to second guess myself at all. And so when somebody asked her about imposter syndrome, she was like, "Are you what is that? I'm no imposter." I just think that's something that again has been created to make us feel like we don't know who we are. You know who you are. You have evidence of it. So let's live from that space of I know who I am and be ready to ask people, who do you think you're talking to? Because I'm telling you, there is this energy upon us where people feel emboldened to say and do particular things, and we may not have challenged it in the past. You know, for all of y'all who love Michelle Obama with the "when they go low we go high," Michelle, forget all that. I have a whole lot of "who do you think you're talking to" in my spirit, and I'm not going to lose that because it's a very honest question. Who do you think you're talking to? um I love us. I love me. I love you. And I know that that kind of energy takes time and it takes practice. So let us continue to practice building ourselves up instead of tearing ourselves down. Because guess what? It's people who are chomping at the bit to do that for you. Don't do it for yourself. Like, I'm just waiting. Yeah, no more suppressing anything. No, for what? For what? If this is what you want, this is what you're going to get. So I don't know. If you wanted something different, maybe you should have made different choices. I don't know what to tell you. I feel very Martha Stewart in saying, listen, you're going to get exactly what you asked for. There's no more of let me respect and honor your feelings and deny my own. No more of that. We can't afford that. So go through this week recognizing and understanding what is living in you, what is already in you. It is not something you have to create, not something you got to buy, not something you got to go out there and get. It is within you. I'm grateful again for all of the support, all of the love, all of this, knowing that again, this is going to come to an end. The very last Sunday in December, I probably will be disabling my YouTube channel and moving everything into the Evolved community. It is where I am investing my time, my focus, my attention, and I'm grateful for that choice, even though it is terrifying me. um, I'm grateful and excited at this and excited at the same time. That's where you can find me. But we'll be back here next Sunday with me saying we're not going to go long today, and that is exactly what we're going to wind up doing. Continue to take care of yourselves. Continue to take care of one another. Look out for those places in spaces where we can express feel freely. We're still raw and we still need to get some stuff out. Um, The reflection that didn't happen on Wednesday, didn't happen on Thursday. I thought it was going to happen on Friday. It didn't happen, but it will happen next Wednesday at 6 p.m., Lord willing. Um, I love y'all. Thank you for participating. I love you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. This is where you can find me.